Have you ever felt like everything is going wrong? Like no matter how hard you try, life keeps pulling you down. What if I told you that your struggles might be leading you towards something greater? Stay with me till the end because this story will change how you see failure. In a bustling city many years ago, a young blacksmith named Ethan lived with big dreams. He was skilled, hardworking, and determined to open his own forge. Every day, he worked under a master blacksmith, learning the art of shaping iron. His hands were calloused, and sweat dripped from his brow, but he never complained. He believed that hard work would lead to success. Ethan spent years saving every coin he earned. Finally, after a decade of relentless effort, he had enough gold to buy his own workshop. But just as his dream was about to become a reality, tragedy struck. Once evening, Ethan locked up his master's shop and made his way home. The streets were unusually quiet, the air heavy with the scent of rain. Clouds loomed overhead, casting long shadows over the cobblestone roads. A few flickering lanterns hung outside the shops, their glow barely cutting through the approaching darkness. Ethan pulled his cloak tighter around his shoulders, walking briskly toward his small wooden house at the edge of the city. His heart pounded with excitement. Tomorrow would be the greatest day of his life. After years of toil, sacrifice, and relentless perseverance, he had finally saved enough to purchase his own forge. His hands, worn and calloused from years of hammering iron, had shaped his future one strike at a time. His pouch, filled with gold coins, lay beside his bed as he fell asleep, dreaming of the life he was about to build. But fate had other plans. While the city lay in slumber, silent figures moved through the narrow streets like shadows. The thieves had been watching Ethan for weeks, knowing he had been saving every coin he earned. Under the cover of night, they forced open his door and crept inside. In mere minutes, they took everything: his savings, his tools, his small possessions. When the first light of dawn broke through his window, Ethan awoke to an empty room. His dream had vanished in a single night. Heartbroken and furious, he stormed through the streets, searching for help. He pleaded with the city guards, but they only shook their heads. The thieves had disappeared without a trace. He returned to his master, hoping for a miracle, but the old man, though kind, had nothing to give. Ethan sat on the steps of his old workplace, staring at the lifeless streets. His years of sacrifice, the long nights, the aching muscles, the hunger, all for nothing. He had climbed so close to his dream, only to have it snatched away when he was at the very peak. As he sat, drowning in despair, an old man approached him. His white beard flowed in the wind, and his wrinkled hands gripped a wooden staff. His eyes, deep and knowing, carried the weight of many years. "You seem troubled," the old man said, his voice gentle but firm. Ethan barely lifted his head. "I have lost everything. My dreams are ruined." The old man nodded, as if he had heard these words many times before. "Perhaps your loss is a blessing in disguise." Ethan clenched his fists. "How can losing everything be a blessing?" The old man sighed, settling down beside him. "Let me tell you a story. Many years ago, in a distant village, there was a potter named Felix. He was known for making the finest clay pots in the land. Every morning, before the sun rose, he would mold wet clay into elegant shapes, his hands moving with the skill of a master. Each pot was carefully baked in a large kiln, emerging strong and beautiful. His craftsmanship was admired, and his work was in high demand. But one day, disaster struck. A great storm rolled in from the mountains, bringing fierce winds and relentless rain. Felix had just finished a batch of pots when a violent gust toppled his kiln. Flames leapt into the air, spreading rapidly. Within moments, his entire workshop was ablaze. Felix and the villagers tried desperately to stop the fire, but by dawn, nothing remained except ashes and broken clay. Felix stood helplessly, watching the destruction of everything he had built. His heart shattered. His years of work were gone in a single night. The villagers pitied him, shaking their heads, whispering that he would never recover. But Felix was not one to surrender. Instead of mourning his loss, he traveled to a distant city, seeking a new beginning. He found a pottery school run by masters from faraway lands, and there, he learned techniques he had never seen before. He discovered how to make stronger, more refined pottery, using secret methods of glazing and firing that his village had never known. Years passed. Felix returned to his village, no longer a simple potter, but a master craftsman. He rebuilt his workshop, stronger, bigger, better. His new pottery was unlike anything the village had ever seen. People traveled from far and wide to buy his work, and his name became legendary. The very storm that had destroyed his past had forced him toward greatness. The old man looked at Ethan and smiled. Sometimes, life takes away what we think we need, only to lead us toward something even greater. Ethan sat in silence, absorbing the story. Could it be possible? Was his failure actually an opportunity in disguise? Something stirred deep within him. He had spent years believing that his hard work alone would bring success, but now, he realized that sometimes, loss is part of the journey. With newfound determination, Ethan made a decision. Instead of mourning his misfortune, he left his city behind. He traveled to a neighboring kingdom, where he sought out the greatest blacksmith in the land. The forge was twice the size of his master's shop, filled with roaring furnaces and weapons crafted for kings. There, Ethan learned techniques he had never imagined. He discovered how to forge unbreakable swords, how to temper iron with precision, and how to shape metal stronger and more flexible than anything he had crafted before. Years passed, and Ethan absorbed every secret, every skill, every lesson. He worked tirelessly, pushing himself beyond his limits. He crafted weapons for knights, for generals, for noblemen. He understood the soul of metal, how fire could bend and strengthen it, how hammer and anvil could shape its destiny. When he finally returned home, he was no longer just a blacksmith, he was a master craftsman. Ethan rebuilt his forge, not as the small workshop he once dreamed of, but as a grand smithy that echoed with the sound of hammers and the glow of molten steel. People traveled from distant lands to purchase his weapons and tools. Kings sought his swords, and warriors trusted his craftsmanship. The same loss that had once broken him had built him into something greater. Years later, a young apprentice stood before him, much like he once had. The boy's hands were rough and calloused, his eyes filled with hope and uncertainty. He looked up at Ethan and asked, "What's the secret to your success?" Ethan paused, staring into the burning forge, the glow reflecting in his eyes. He turned to the boy and smiled. "Failure does not destroy us," he said. "It prepares us for something greater." Ethan's story teaches us that loss is not the end, it is a new beginning. Life often takes away what we think we need, but those setbacks can lead us to greater opportunities we never imagined. Even when everything seems to be falling apart, trust the journey, because sometimes, our biggest failures hold the seeds of our greatest successes. Now, ask yourself, have you ever faced a failure that later turned into a blessing? If this story inspired you, like, share, and comment "Failure is my strength." Subscribe for more life-changing stories that inspire hope and resilience.